Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Skura, also known as Islands in Front, and today we'll be doing something special. MTGO replays are broken, so I cannot do my favorite type of content, but on my Discord, public, free Discord, link below, I asked you to send me your games. Which again cannot be replaced as we know, but you can launch up a league and click record on OBS. And one of my Discord members, Faye members, Sylvic, did just that. And I would like to cover one of their games. And you could do so as well. Just message me on Discord with a link to like a Google Drive recording, and I'll happily get into your games. Now, this one is going to be Mono Blue Fairies, my list, I think, fully, versus Mono Blue Terra. Okay? We're playing already post board, and we will be watching this on 2x speed. We're post board, and we're opening this hand on the play, which is 3 lands, Fairy Miscreant, Bind the Monster, Counterspell, Hacker. So, what do you think of this hand? To keep this educational, I'll give you a moment to breathe and to think. This hand is excellent. This is like a top tier hand. Top tier hand. I would probably change Miscreant to Fairy Seer, and then the only thing that would make this better. Absolutely excellent. Why? In this matchup, you have to have a ninja on turn 2. That's non-negotiable. If I know I'm playing this matchup, so always post board, maybe locally, so you know it for game 1, you have to have a ninja early, because while they're spending mana cantripping to fuel the graveyard, you have to establish your board and start attacking, so that when they start playing the creatures out on turn 3, 4, 5, you've already been hitting them, you're probably up on like 2 cards, you can start fighting, and even if they resolve a Serpent or 2, and they will, because you don't have enough counters to actually counter all of them, you can still attack them in the air, and then chump block with the extra creatures you've been drawing, so they're attacking, and you're attacking back, but you're actually getting damage through, and drawing cards in the process. And also, because you've established your board, they can't really attack with their serpents, because if they attack with the serpent, you'll attack back with the ninja you've already established on the board. So, and because all their setup costs 1 mana, you can't even really efficiently disrupt it with this deck. Because what, you're going to spell start a mental note? Sure, and then they will cast 2 more cantrips on that turn. So it doesn't really work out in your favor. So with that said, this is the logic behind hands to keep and how this matchup is going to play out. And it's going to play out like that every time. You want to increase your win rate against Terra easily? Mulligan for 1-drop ninja. Okay, so we go Fairy Miscreant. And pass, opponent will play, let's see, Delver of Secrets. Right, so this is both a really good and a really bad situation for us. Because Delver of Secrets means they're not setting up, they're not cantripping, which means that maybe they will not even have Serpent turn 3, which is huge. On the flip side though, Delver itself can stop the whole aggression, right? So it's kind of hit or miss. Now with this hand, we do have Bind the Monster. We can hit with Hacker at least once. We can maybe force a trade with Hacker itself. So it's not all bad. My current list also plays Snap, which gives you even more insulation. But for now, we just do the thing. Fairy Miscreant, use the Hacker. We are not holding up Counterspell. That would be a very bad situation. A very bad choice. We just go for it. We need to establish our own plan. We unfortunately are met with a 5th land. 3rd land, Gucci. 4th land, okay. 5th land, that's not what we want. We'll see whether we can maybe cash it in with the Hacker. And now opponent reveals Brainstorm with Delver. So as any skilled player, they just blind reveal it immediately and flip. Now they are going to do some magic, cantripping stuff. Maybe they kept the one lander. We don't know. And we'll see what happens. Now there are a couple of types of players because they could attack us. It's going to be unlikely because most players are more defensive when they play against Fae, which is not surprising. Fae is pretty aggressive and puts a lot of pressure. However, one of the arguments to attack is that you expect to have to play around or have to play into 4 bind the monster and possibly some snaps as well. So if you expect your Delver will get removed anyways, you might as well attack for 3. But then there is a counter argument, which is, well, but if you attack and they have removal, they might not even use the removal because you just attacked. So Fae will just attack back and hold the removal for a better moment. So there are a couple of ways you could approach it. Now we see Sleep of the Dead on the hacker and no attacks, which is interesting. Very conservative, right? Because you could attack because you're getting hit for 1, no value given, right? Contrary to the hacker. However, you just want to disable all the ninja shenanigans. Now, we draw Snap, and what do? We could snap the aberration. We could bind the aberration. I think one of the plays worth at least considering is doing nothing. Because you don't need to do anything, right? You can just play Land Pass. The main reason to do Land Pass is to hold a bit. Because maybe you will prefer to snap or bind something else, and maybe hacker will just trade off with aberration. Now, the downside, of course, is that you're not hitting that one more time. And so with this hand that has 5 lands, hitting with the hacker is pretty valuable. And so if we go to that conclusion, it makes sense to bind now so that next turn you have 4 mana up, so you can snap, possibly counter the counter, and then snap it. And so with all of that said, after having a bit of a think, and I can see that our champion, Sylvic, is also having a bit of a think, is doing exactly that. Also remember, chat, please do have a think. Thinking is pretty based. We see Lorien revealed, cannot counter, okay, sure, and they pass back. What does it say? Right, remember, every move, as Daniel Negreanu said, every move at the poker table conveys information. They just passed back. No cantrip, no more delvers. There are 2 ways I could interpret this. One, they do have cantrips, but they have counterspell. So they might as well just pass and go mental note end step. Or they're afraid of spells such as Sprite. Right? I think these are 2 options. So if that's the case, you could bluff spells such as Sprite from this position on, kind of feeding into their fear, right? Because, why not? Why not? If you can instill fear into them, you can make them play around stuff you don't have. Why not? Which in practice, what does it mean in practice actually? It means like, maybe not online, but in paper you can posture a bit. You can maybe like end step tap 2 mana, untap 2 mana. You can just kind of go like, it costs 1 mana. I don't know, it's difficult to just explain like this, but just kind of get into the vibe. Just imagine you actually did have it, kind of sell the idea a little bit. So, we do draw a ninja, which is awesome for us. And they don't have anything to block. So we can very comfortably go to combat and attack with all. Now, you could the small ninja. You could do that. But I don't think you need to, because you have the land to discard to Hacker, which is as good as drawing a fresh card. And you're also drawing a card off of Ninja. So I don't think you need to be so value oriented here. Uh, Although this has the upside of keeping a flyer in play. Because if you Ninja Fairy Miscreant, then you're kind of in the position that if you replay Fairy Miscreant, you don't have both Counterspell and Snap up at the same time. Which is again important, because if your Snap gets counted, you don't have the mana buyback. So you have to consider these things. I think it's actually close, but I think this is perfectly reasonable. Remember to stack the triggers exactly as Sylvic did. Good job. You want the fresh. I call it big draw. You want the fresh draw, the big draw first, and then you want the card selection, which is the small draw or the hacker draw, because when you draw this card, basically you want to do that from a bigger pool of cards, so you have better choice, right? So first you draw all the actual just draws, right? Hacker, so ninja, and then when you have your hand established, then you resolve hacker, so you go draw, and then I'll think what to discard from a full hand now. And the same goes with multiple hackers. So first you want to draw the big draw from the hacker that just entered, and then draw this card. So we draw off one mind, and then we draw this card. Spells are the sprite. It's very interesting now, because we actually, in a way, don't really want to discard the land, honestly speaking, because we have just so much gas. And now, you could discard land anyways and pass, with the intention of counterspelling a Terra. And then, if they don't Terra, you can end step flush and spell starter, kind of confirming that they were right. I don't like main phase Fairy Miscreant off one mind, because it's risking. Like, I don't think it progresses you enough, and you already have a good ball position. So I think, and also if you discard a land and you go end step spell starter, then you can very easily convert off one mind. And if you go with the counterspell line, you still have 4 mana, you can easily go Miscreant off one mind or just hit with ninjas. So I think I would discard Island in the end, but it's not clear-cut awful. That Island is not clear-cut awful. Okay? That's the main thing I wanted to say. So now we see Thoughtscour main phase, and you have to make a call right now. If you don't spell, why do you not spell start this? Well, I don't spell start this because if I do, they still have 1, 2, 6 spells. I want to have a counter spell for Terra, right? Or my call is that they don't really have a Terra, and I'm going to snap it off. And this is, while this game has been played pretty well, I would say. I think this is going, if I remember correctly, from just glimpsing on the game, this is the first moment where I think I would disagree with Sylvic, because I don't think that's really consistent. Because because the main branches here are I'm afraid of Terra, I'm not afraid of Terra. I don't think there are sub branches that are really relevant here. And if you are not afraid of Terra, I'm just snapping off spell starter on Thoughtscour immediately. And if I am afraid of Terra, I'm holding up counterspell for the Terra, which is fully enabled now. I think letting Thoughtscour resolve and then countering Delver is kind of inconsistent. Unless, of course, you have like a read like, oh, they don't have anything. But again, you would have to have that read previously. I don't know. Now they counterspell back, which I think is a sign of big weakness on their part. Or they want to be efficient and kind of cash into mana spell right now, which would also be reasonable, but I think it's a sign of weakness. But I would not have played as such. I think it's inconsistent. Now they do have a Delver. There are a couple of options. You can snap the Delver. You can play Miscreant off one mine and see what happens. Or you can attack with the ninjas. Or you can attack with the ninja. Just the big ninja. Attacking with both incentivizes them to trade, which saves your removal spell and allows you that if they do flip next turn, and you can just assume that they will, then they cannot trade with the big ninja, right? So you just trade small ninja now, so they never have the choice of trading with the big ninja ever. Which is fine, although I wouldn't put so much emphasis on ninjas at this point anyways, because you have to expect Terra to come down soon, which will blank the ninjas. There is more importance on the flyers. So I think I would just attack with both. I wouldn't do that because it ties up 2 of your mana, which is a lot. Like 2 mana is a lot. But I do understand the impulse to do this, because depending on what you draw, maybe you want to change the line. My question is, what would that be? I assume Sylvic wants to draw into bind the monster, but even if he did, I don't think I would bind here, because you can just trade your hacker for Delver, and if you draw the bind, great, you're insulated against a Terra that might come down soon. And also, now that's very easy for me to say because I saw what you draw, but if you didn't do this and you just attacked, you draw off the ninja, you draw Fairy Seer, and then you can just comfortably go Fairy Seer, Fairy Mastermind, hold up Counterspell, and you would have 2 creatures on the board. And in a lot of matchups, it's not about cards in hand, it's about cards on the battlefield, because if you lose, if they drop in multiple terrors, how good is it you have 5 cards if you can't unload them? So I would do this attack, but I would do this attack first, I think. Now, you could Fairy Seer pre-combat as well to try to dig for the 5th land, but that's probably a bit too greedy. I mean, greedy. You'll be playing to the best possible play a bit too much. So right now we should just pass, and as Sylvic does. And now they have 4 cards in hand. And they do have a Serpent. So you should snap off a counterspell on it. Which Sylvic doesn't. And now, I don't think that's consistent, again. Because, okay, so one thing is that if you don't counterspell, you're not doing anything. Right? So that's bad. If you're not counterspelling because you're afraid of the Serpent with Ward, and you know you can also always snap this Serpent, I have one issue with this logic. Because on the previous turn, Sylvic played as if there was no Terror, right? Because they tapped down, playing Spellstarter on Delver, not holding up Counterspell. So they assumed there is no Serpent. And now the opponent plays Serpent, which, if we use Sylvic's logic from the game, has to be freshly drawn, because they would have played it the previous turn. And if so, there are no more Serpents in hand. And if so, you should counterspell it. If they counterspell back, that's great. You've used your counterspell, you've used 2 mana, now you can untap, snap it clean, and still have counterspell up because you have another one. So I think it's a pretty inconsistent type of play, following the logic of the player we're watching. We draw the 5th land. Now, you could snap, you could Sprite. I mean, if you had Counterspell, it would be a different story, but you could also consider playing just Fairy Seer and holding up double Counterspell. But I'm not sure, so like depending on what the logic is, because like at this point I would know, okay, they have no Serpents. There's probably a Counterspell somewhere there. So, you know, let's see what actually is done. Because, like, you don't need to keep connecting with the big ninja. You don't have to always do that. I think this is pretty reasonable. And you can see how clunky counterspell is, right? Even though you have 5 lands. Because this deck is pretty efficient. So that's another reason to have used counterspell on the previous turn. So, now we pass back. Opponent does nothing. Nothing happens. Let's see. So, again, what's your logic? If they had Ponder, would they have cast it? And I think they would have cast it. So if we kind of follow the logic, I think it's almost clear they don't have another Serpent. But maybe your opponent is the master of baiting, so to speak, and which is all to say that I would consider counterspelling this. Now we see another Serpent, probably found with the Ponder, and then we counterspell. And counterspell gets spell pierced. Now, you could use the reason that we didn't counterspell earlier because we were afraid of this soft counter. But I'm not sure that's a reason, because it's okay that your counters get countered. It's okay that your creatures get removed. Like, it's fine. Especially when you're up like 4 cards on your opponent and you would never pay for spell pierce anyways. Like, as you can see, we try to squeeze in as many things as possible, play as many things as possible. So I'm not sure we would realistically be able to play through spell pierce. Brute forcing is just better, and we have more cards. And opponent's life total keeps decreasing. So we go with Fairy Seer, I assume, to then go off one mind and snap. Both cards are fine. Now, I told you at the very beginning that in this matchup, at some point, Serpents will start resolving, but that's okay because we will have dealt enough damage and drawn enough cards that we can just chum block our way out of it. And we can enact that exact scenario right now by keeping Fairy Miscreant. Not even Sprite, honestly. Sprite is like, well, counter a cantrip, but keeping the Miscreant. Ooh, very good, Sylvek. Nice. I don't think a lot of players would kind of have the discipline to bottom spell such as Sprite. Very well done. Now you can, do the thing. You don't have to do that now, sure. Because you could have... that's okay. You draw. And now I would, because you have 4 mana, I would go Fairy Seer into Miscreant. I wouldn't go Fairy Seer. Because you're actually getting deeper if you want to find, let's say, another snap. You go deeper if you go Seer Miscreant. And the draw isn't going anywhere. You will play Fairy Miscreant. Next turn you will get the draw. So you could go draw, but again, you go deeper with Seer, and the draw isn't going anywhere. And it's better to scry before you do the drawing, because next turn, if you go Fairy Seer, and you set up the perfect top, if you don't have a way to draw these cards, you have to wait another turn cycle. While you could do this now, and either draw them immediately with Fairy Miscreant, or the following turn. You draw another Miscreant, and at this point, I don't think the opponent could be saved, even if they had 3 terrors in hand. So this is just clinical. You can just take the damage, no problem. So, yeah. So this was the game. I think it showed a lot of things that are important in the matchup. Sylvek, I would say, very well done. I think your first, 3 or 4 turns were perfect, exactly as I would play them, which is the same thing. But I think the break point where I started to disagree was the spell starter turn. And then at some point, I think you played a bit more inconsistently with the thought process of what the opponent could have. and you just started countering or not countering kind of randomly. It felt to me like. Now, I'm just watching it right now at 7 a.m. Although I have drunk coffee. Chat, viewers, tell me what you think. Did you also have the same feeling about inconsistency with the spell stutter? Or maybe there was something else, but maybe that I didn't see that made perfect sense? Although this is how I would see it, right? So, good place overall, disciplined. The only things I would change is change the way you viewed your opponent hand throughout the game with the spell stutters and counter spells. And also now at the closer to the end, I wouldn't just jump Fairy Miscreants to just draw cards. You've got Fairy Sea, and that would have been better. And then there was that one turn when you off one minded with Fairy Miscreant before combat, which probably I would not have done. But I think these are a bit less consequential. I think the spell starter thing was much more important than the other things I mentioned. And if you would like your game featured, or rather coached on, so to speak, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. Again, link below. And then send me your Google Drive disk of your recording in OBS or something, and I'll happily cover it. Yeah, and then remember that you can get more of my content on my Metafy, where you get a ton of high level stuff, more guides coming. There is a sideboard guide for this specific list as well, and in 2-ish weeks there will be a full update of my 30 or 40 page guide to fairies for every single matchup, the hands to keep and the logic to play and stuff like that. Okay, thank you very much for watching then, and as always, please remember to hold my hand and let's pass the turn together, and I will see you next time. Cheers. Bye.